Yes, okay, so for the record, Sheila Gilmore is the chair of this committee, but she's online, so she asked us to chair it. I think we're okay now. I think it's recording, it says recording, and we have everybody there. I don't see anybody else. Oh, I didn't see, okay, John.
Okay, I'll be in,
All right.
I'll be right in.
Thanks.
I'll be right.
Which chair is best?
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll have one, I'll get one when I got red one over there.
Okay.
So I'm Counselor Perry, chairing the meeting on behalf of Counselor Gilmore. This meeting is being recorded by the Community Relations Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. So the recorder representative is recording the meeting on his phone. Anybody else?
We're recording it on my phone.
Well, yes. All
It's legal.
right. So roll call of members, Counselor Gilmore,
Here.
Counselor Hilly,
Here.
Counselor Ricketts. Counselor Wondolowski is present on site and Counselor Perry is semi here.
Good to meet you.
Right. Approval of minutes is the next thing on the agenda. There aren't any. Communications from the department heads by invitation. I see none present. Public comment. Is anybody here for public comment? You're not here for public comment, ma'am?
We can put this on.
It's not, if you wish.
Possibly.
All right, well, it's public comment time now, so if you want
So
to.
I think we didn't know how this
All
was
right.
going to go, so there were people.
Okay, if she's here as
Well, you
part,
can say something.
yeah, we can do that as part of the discussion.
Okay, that would be.
If anybody's here for something else other than the agenda item we're here for, you're welcome to speak now. I don't see anybody for that. So now we're here for the general discussion that the meeting is here for, which is an
Oh,
update.
Counselor
ahead.
Perry,
Yes.
so a resident posted in the chat asking to please turn on the video in the city hall meeting room. Are you able to do that, or is that not working well?
I thought I turned the camera on here, but I guess not because I see this.
I was wondering, yeah.
Hey, Chief of Staff, you know how to turn the camera on? Yeah.
I love you, Wayne.
Well, I was caught off guard.
Like
I thought I did that, I didn't.
There we
Okay,
go.
all right.
Great.
I apologize. Our expert chief of staff is here to save us over and over again. So the discussion is to update from invited guests, including Letty Goodman and ServiceNet representative. Is the ServiceNet representative here? Okay, regarding refugees currently residing in a Days Inn motel in Greenfield. So Wendy was invited, and do you have an opening statement before we start?
Yes, my opening statement would just be that your ice cream's gonna melt. That I can't really speak to what's happening in the Days Inn because I haven't been allowed to be at the Days Inn. So I will speak to my relationship and what I've done for folks that are here, the Haitians. The role is the liaison to the Haitian new arrivals. So I'll do my best to fill people in on the Days Inn, but Masni is here, who has been living at the Days Inn. So she can probably answer any of those questions. And this is Mary Jo. She's my daughter and she's translating also while I'm talking, which is lovely. Thank you.
Merci.
All right. So we were talking a little bit before the meeting started, and you pretty much just said what you just said. So I guess the meeting is open now for any questions we'll start with the counselors who are in attendance. If the counselors have any questions of Wendy or anybody else in the room. I think I unmuted everybody from this end, so you should just be able to unmute yourself and talk. Go ahead. I can't. Sorry. Counselor Gilmore, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious. I'd like to know how this rule started and how it evolved, because I feel like the project is larger in scope than I had originally thought. So can you kind of go through like some of the history, like where we started and
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, happily. Not going to go all the way back here, but my Creole comes from having lived in Haiti for about 8 years, and I started out in Peace Corps. So I had Creole as a background. When the Haitians came to Greenfield, I was like, oh my God, there were two people in town that spoke Creole, myself and Pam Adams. And we stepped in to see what we could do because, well, Pam Adams was raised there. So her Creole is her first language. So we both stepped in doing whatever we could do. And then we're not really welcomed and we both stepped back
Not welcomed by who?
by ServiceNet at the Days Inn. We were both told that we were not welcome. At this time, this was part of when I met Mazni, I was bringing corn to her because it was that time of year. So anyway, so we backed off and then I started going in with Reach and doing other assessments. So I was back in the environment. And when Ginny came in, because there was nobody in town that was helping people outside of their little enclave and we couldn't really get it, I suggested to Mayor DeSorga that we create a role, since we have the skill, that we create a role that would be the liaison from the city to this new community that's moving in. That's how the role got created. Pam and I have basically been doing it, but kind of however we were doing it. So with our new mayor, it was like a no-brainer. Of course, we should do that. And that led to other problems. So that's where, so I backed off for 3 months. I wasn't going to start with this. I was going to start with this wonderful party that Mazni had at the rec center, at the recreation area yesterday, that she did for her 7-year-old daughter. She had invited all the Haitians that were at the Days Inn. They had a wonderful time. They rented the pavilion. And this is why we want a liaison, so that she knows that she can do that. Other parents came up to me and said, can you do this? Can we do this? I talked to people about having a pass. So that was kind of, how do we invite people into the community where they want to stay? For whatever reason, and I really don't know why, we were having a meeting with the mayor when I first took on this role again. When I first took on this role, and the vice president of ServiceNet came in and didn't want me in the role and said it was unnecessary. Never asked me a question. I don't know. There might have been confusion. She might have thought I was liaison to the Days Inn, which I was not. I was liaison to these folks. But it got very heated. And so I just stepped back for the last 3 months since April and have continued to do what I can do, but can't be on site. So haven't been able to connect in the way it's people haphazardly find me and they're like, could you help me do this? Can you help me get a license? Can you help me call this landlord? Can you, my kid isn't feeling well. I need translation with this, whatever it is only if they find somebody that can reach out to me because I'm not allowed to be on site. So that's kind of what motivated this meeting. I'm looking at Sheila, I'm not looking at anybody in the room. That's what motivated this meeting is now we're coming back and it's been 3 months and people are starting to find housing. They're working here, they're in the community. And there's a gate and we're having trouble managing that gate, but we also wanted to be able to talk with people about who is here, who's in our community, how can we help people settle in? What can we do? That's the role that I want as the liaison, because I know that there are people in this community that want to be more involved and we don't have a way. The language is some of a barrier, but it's not the whole barrier. So did I make sense? Did I say too much? Did I say too little?
No, you're okay, but I saw this hand first. So Megan, if you want to say anything before I call on people in the room. Go ahead, Megan, if you can hear us. We still can't hear you.
Yeah, she's muted.
You're muted, Megan. Well,
Not now.
Freezing.
He's on the tape. right
okay, okay, so if she comes, if you hear us, Megan, just chime in. Go ahead, ma'am.
Well, this is a good segue from Wendy, because my name is Suzanne Glovacki, and I live in Greenfield. And from when folks first came last June, I wanted to jump in and help in any way I could. I don't have Braille. But Wendy and I both right from the beginning last spring, were, contacted ServiceNet. How can we help? What can we do? For anything, to giving people rides, helping English. During the summer, last summer, Center for New Americans wasn't doing any classes. They didn't get started until September. They were working on getting started, but they didn't. So there was really not much going on last summer. And we ran up against ServiceNet, and I have lots of emails to show it. We met with Amy Timmons, who's their community relations vice VP.
Yep.
And the ServiceNet has made it really clear right from the start that they do not have capacity to deal with volunteers. They just don't. And so we couldn't even meet once with their manager there on site, or, there was just a complete closed door. And, we struggled against that some, and we met again, and we, tried to figure out a way that could work. It was very frustrating. I wrote a couple of my terms to the paper. And what else I want to say? In the meantime, last fall, winter, I took the training with Center for New Americans, and I'm helping a bit with their English classes. And I've gotten to know some of the families there at the inn, and informally, I'm trying to help somebody with a license and different things.
But you're doing that on your own outside of
Totally my
ServiceNet's.
own. And, again, just about a few weeks ago, I contacted Amy again and she said, no, it's nice that you're volunteering for Center for New Americans, but we can't do it. We can't deal with volunteers. And just one other thought, which is, so I'm a retired social worker, so I like to make phone calls and figure out things, right? I'm getting a little anxious here. So I called, I found out that there's the Office for Refugees and Immigrants out of the State House. And I had the great fortune to talk with their director there. And I asked her, when you have a contract to help with immigrants, do you have a mechanism to work with volunteers? And she told me, absolutely, yes, we could not do our work without volunteers. And she says it's in the contract that they signed. They have to show us how they were going to recruit and train and monitor and supervise volunteers. So, I came to learn that ServiceNet doesn't have a contract through them. They got an emergency contract through housing and whatever that long title is, they gave housing. And I haven't seen the contract, which I would love to see, but I don't know that they have anything about volunteers in there. ServiceNet certainly thinks that all they're doing is sheltering people, room and board sort of, and I'm not even sure what the specifics are that they're also supposed to do.
Have you seen the contract?
So I'll end there.
Have you seen it? You saw the contract? Does the city have a copy of the contract? Okay. All right. Let's just get Megan. Megan, are you there? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead before we lose you. Say what you want to say.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that I'm the public health nurse in Greenfield, and I've been working with Wendy since the very start, and we could not do this without her. She is the translator, and it's not fair to have people at the Days Inn and nobody can speak their language. There's nobody to complain to if there's an issue, nobody that will listen, nobody that will report back to us. Right now, there are bed bugs in the Days Inn, and I reached out to ServiceNet and I tried to get some answers and nobody responded to me. So I had to get answers from Wendy, and this is all kind of
trying to get in.
done on the.
I hit the thing by mistake, so. I guess.
You can go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I thought you couldn't hear me. And I just think that it's so important to have someone that's a non-biased person who just is there to translate and help with what's needed, that's not coming from the state agency. I can't say enough about the things that Wendy has done. She helps me get car seats for moms that are in the hospital that need baby car seats to get home. When I call over to Days Inn, usually they say, no, we don't need anything. Everybody has they're getting money, they're getting a check, they don't need anything. But then when I talked to Wendy, I realized, yes, they do. And then our refugees come into the health department and get what they need because they're not getting it at the Days Inn. So I think we need somebody on the outside. That's all.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good job, Megan. Does anybody else online have any comments or questions to ask of the group here before I turn it over to the group here? Counselors, you're all set for now? All right. Someone asked me to ask the question. They noticed that the Days Inn sign is gone. So does that mean Days Inn is not involved anymore? And who owns the building?
I haven't been privy to this. Maybe the mayor can speak to that, but again, the Days Inn, the service net folks, that's.
I cannot speak to this.
Okay,
I do not know.
all right. Okay, I was just answering. Someone asked me to ask the question, so there it is.
I can answer a little bit of that.
Okay.
So, we were told that they lost the franchise part because the Days Inn brand serves like breakfast and they have certain things. And so they had to take down the sign because they didn't meet the Days Inn brand anymore. So the
All right.
same owner was supposed to still own it unless that changed within the last few months, but they just couldn't run under the franchise.
Okay. Thank you very much, Megan. I appreciate that. Counselor Rondasi, you had your hand up 3 times. I ignored you.
That's okay, it's fine. I mean, this is a really important discussion, and I think there's a few pieces of this, right? One is, what is the scope of the work that ServiceNet's supposed to be doing? And understanding that role. And then, you know, it sounds like then they are also acting as a gatekeeper, but if there are other, like, understanding what are the other needs that maybe somebody else can provide and kind of coming together on how we can step in to make sure that those other needs that ServiceNet can't meet, and maybe it's not in their contract to meet. So, you know, just giving them the benefit of the doubt that if they're only doing shelter, that shelter is not everything
Exactly.
that community needs. And then I don't know with previous refugee communities, what was provided by other providers that we could be advocating for.
So, should I just,
Well, I wanted to mention, I want to ask you, didn't you tell me before that the liaison is part of the contract?
no,
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 okay.
liaison is not part of the liaison is something that we
Okay.
create. Go ahead, can we let the mayor
Yes, of
speak?
I
course.
just wanted to say, Councilor Gilmore had asked something at the beginning. I said we did have a semi-formal process for this. We had Wendy Corey and Soried badges, you know, we made a badge. Let's let them know, and there were specific things that were especially needed. The driver's license, for instance, here in Massachusetts, I don't know if this is just statewide, to get a license in the state of Massachusetts, you can go get your learner's permit. If you get a license, you need to go to the registry with someone who has lived here for a year. If you have come from Haiti, you don't know anyone who's been here for a year. So that was we had an issue with a few people driving on their learner's permit because that was problematic. Wendy took the maximum number you could take was 3 people to the registry. We applied for a special dispensation so that she could take more people to the registry than that because she spoke their language and she was making sure that they received their license. She was also working with our police department to you know, in light of this, to introduce the folks there to our police department because in the country that they had come from, I heard that the police, our police are helpful. They're helping us, and I don't think that was the message that I was hearing. That in the country of their origin, they had the same relationship. And so that was another thing. When she went down, she would be introducing our officers to the residents there so that, you know, if they had any issues or concerns. So there were a few specific things that were, you know, that definitely needed. But so I just wanted to highlight the origin.
Mhm.
Thank you. Can I just add to that? One of the things that I did because of the expansion, thank you for filling all that in, Mayor, but the expansion of that license has been bogged down in the state. I'm not sure where it is right now, but we've been pursuing that. And as a liaison, touching into the community, a lot of folks have Spanish. So touching into the community to see who has Spanish, who can go be that person that's been here for the year that would sponsor. So again, the liaison role is to reach out into the community so that people can move into the community.
Sure.
And I guess I want to say, and thank you for your clarity in that, there are pieces to this. There is, and I don't want this all to be about ServiceNet.
Mhm.
There are definite problems with ServiceNet. They've said that they do not have staffing. Masley, I would rather her not speak to it because she's still not free from that. She's waiting for ServiceNet to finish their paperwork so that she can move into the apartment that she was supposed to move in today. I've talked to the landlord for hours. So not only is there a gate on her getting into the apartment because they haven't done what they need to do, but the landlords don't want to deal with the housing because they're getting screwed because that gate is there and it's not free flowing.
Yeah.
So there is the whole ServiceNet piece of what do we do and how do we manage that? There's also the idea of the liaison, which is we've got con family in kainan con el Bruno. Human. In what? Kasi sama tulad din ko.
Bigyan yun ako people may book.
Okay, so there are 3 families already that we know that are going to be living in our town. How do we help us to know them? How do we help them to integrate? Like I think I said, Mazni just finished her CNA test. She starts her CNA job tomorrow.
I know.
They were partying for her 7-year-old yesterday. You know, this is what the vitalizing of our community. And in order for me to do it, so the tracking back to ServiceNet is somehow we have to have this dialogue so that I can be on site because when Masley leaves, there's another family that comes in.
But when Masley leaves, ServiceNet's done with the process, once they sign the paperwork.
So Mary Jo was working at CHD as a caseworker, so she might be able to shed some more light on the
I'll get to you
process.
next, ma'am.
So when I was working at CHD as a housing specialist
Mhm.
and a case management, I believe where I where CHD was part of it still because we had what you want to call it? I can't remember the appropriate name for it, but there was somebody that was checking in with the client once a month and also with the landlord to check if to see everything's okay, if they can't pay the rent or they're still involved, but it's
Sure.
less,
Right.
you know.
Yes.
So there's some follow-up?
There's some follow-up, but there's also some work that's got to be done. It's not like
Mhm.
complete.
CHD is doing that.
CHG is doing
Yeah.
that.
So CHD and ServiceNet have the same kind of contract?
Yes. And they work with the EOHLC.
Yeah, is it West Springfield? Is
Yes, it is.
So that was where I first started with to answer your question, Sheila. When I first knew that the Haitians were here, they weren't in Greenfield yet, they were down in West Springfield. And so I was going down to West Springfield, people were donating clothes and stuff. People didn't have anything. They just came from warm countries. It was the middle of the winter. No, we were getting into the winter. It was October. So we were just managing that. We're at a different stage. So we've evolved and people have evolved and now we've got a whole mix of folks that have different experience being here, different levels of capacity and different needs from ServiceNet. And I'll shut up.
Well, no, don't shut up. Pam, did you have something to add or ask or?
I have a lot, if you give me, thank you. I'm glad I'm here. I live in the Weldon. We have a man who's Haitian.
Mhm.
He's a volunteer at the hospital. He volunteers at GCC, and right away, he said to me, I need to be used. I gave the name over. He asked me what's going on, why I'm not hearing anything. This is part of the huge dropping the ball, I'll use that phrase. Because I was like, I also was told, oh, you gotta give them their privacy. Oh my gosh, they just need
Yeah,
to be
no,
left
sorry.
alone. And I find that annoying because I belong to a church who does everything that's ever needed for people that we bring in, right? So I know in other communities, it's a little different. Also, when I heard that DHCD, which is now HLC,
yep.
that they were in charge of feeding people, I
What are
was
the acronyms? I'm
horrified.
sorry, I don't know what the letters are.
So Department of Housing and Community Development.
Okay.
I lived in public housing under them for 4 years.
Got it.
It's now called HLC, we short.
They just changed the name 2 years ago.
So,
Just wanna make
yeah,
sure.
this is
The alphabet
I work on
soup.
the state level and I lobby at the state level. So they were in charge of like feeding people. I have belonged to Housing Greenfield for over 6 years. And we were like, who's feeding them? And then they said, oh, well, at that time it was DHCD. The food was so bad for these people because it's not used to what they ate. I got a call from Ryan Whitney, he's listening in. Ryan said, Pamela, we have given a bunch of food to everybody that's in an encampment. We still have leftovers. These people don't want that food. How about the Weldon? They brought over meal after meal. I said, we always have hungry people. I said, hey, what about you? What about you? So it was inedible because it's not the food that they're used to feeding themselves or their family.
Sure.
And I don't know what later on happened. I heard it was Mesa Verde. I heard they wanted to be able to cook their own food. They needed a community kitchen where they could actually, which isn't gonna happen in a motel, right?
Mhm.
That I wanted you to know. The FRTA was running. A wonderful woman had bag after bag from the Reliance Center over here on Main Street. She's standing there waiting for a bus. A bus flies by and I was watching this going like, oh my God. And she's like, oh God, how am I gonna carry all this stuff back to Days Inn? I left, I circled around, I got her. I said, can you please come in my car? I bet I know where you need to go. I called up the FRTA people. I was like, do you have brochures in Spanish? Did anybody tell these people? Because they told me that man had a on-demand schedule going to GCC. And I thought, who's responsible for letting them know the bus service in the very city where they're trying to transport themselves and their food? She was grateful. She never let me in near, but she said, just drop them right here. I don't know how she would have ever gotten them home. This is before there were cars, before, so that's, I thought was ridiculous. Because I worked on the state level in some of this area, I know that other communities would need to call in like National Guard and they would call in soldiers, which are very traumatic for anybody that's been through what these poor people have been through. And that was told to me in the state realm. It's that if you can't use a volunteer, but you can bring in some soldiers to help, who would want that? You know, who would really be thinking that's a safe situation? Also, I can tell you that Mr. Whitney wanted to go over and take kids to a playground. And he's not had a Corey, but he was like, they're cooped up there, they've got nothing to do. This is before they were in camps, before they went to preschool. And in the meantime, the whole community is told, stay away, stay away, stay away. I have been in Megan's office over there for the Board of Health. This is my last comment. When stuff flowed in, it was rampant. It was covered the entire upstairs. And they said, we don't need any more now. And then they kept saying, and I don't want to speak for the Board of Health, but you know, it's like Service Nest needs to come up with a place. If we need a place, then let them do it. Don't clutter up the whole the whole Board of Health when they need it for their purposes, right?
Yeah.
So all of that stuff that came in, winter clothing, everything, it was piles and heaps. And I know they got what they need eventually, but it seems totally disorganized. It seems totally ridiculous to put these wonderful people that we want to welcome here and say, we can't help you. And I heard it over and over. And I also, the last comment is, when Senator Joe Comerford came here at GCC, these people had translators and Senator Joe said, there is a lot of money. Where's the money? And she said in that meeting with everybody listening, I'm gonna go back there with my team and we're gonna find out. The money is there. So the question is, where'd all the money go? And why isn't it being used for certain things? And I feel the same way. I don't care whether it's ServiceNet, clinical support office, all this stuff. It's like, where's the oversight? I'd like to know somebody's looking at the books and somebody knows where the expenses are and where the money needs to go. That's my last comment.
Thank you very much. On the issue of privacy, there's a big difference between respecting people's privacy and locking people's privacy or, yeah, so that.
We all would have loved to have
Yes.
helped and welcomed. And this whole thing about, I've been Cory before. My churches have to Cory everybody and cordon off where the Sunday school is.
Yeah.
We get it. But that can be a process that can actually happen so that we could be helpful.
Any feedback on that, on those comments, Wendy?
Oh.
Well, I didn't mean to catch you off guard, just in case there was anything with the follow-up.
Look, I just want you to know that all the winter stuff got there. Suzanne was very involved. I was very involved. And we just went and opened our trunk up
And
and we brought it over to Jason and opened the trunk up. Massey was very involved in, as soon as they knew, she'd get people and people would come and take what they needed.
some folks took the bus there, figured out how to get off the bus.
Well,
and get to the
afterwards, and
house.
that's what Megan was talking about, was afterwards, it was like, no, you can go. So once they knew that they could go and there was another resource, they used another resource. So again, but to go back a little bit, there are, what do we want to be talking about? I mean, there is one question about how do we work with ServiceNet? There's a bigger question of how do we support these folks that are just like amazing, and how do we give them better access? So, and then there's me in the mix, but all I really want to do is help. And there is a bit of a piece of, because I'm a volunteer
Sure.
and I'm not getting paid, which, just for the record, translations, I'm getting $100 an hour if I do it, where I'm refusing monies. But it's not like I don't know what I'm doing. Go ahead.
But things, in fairness, things have improved slightly since the stuff you're talking about last fall, though.
What's improved?
Pamela, things have improved slightly since the stuff you're talking about last fall, right? I mean, you've seen some
I would
improvement?
have to go, all I know is if I go to 99, a little tiny child speaks 4 to 5 languages. He was with his daddy, a doll, and she spoke in every language, because I know a couple of languages besides English. So how would I know it's improved? Is there articles in the paper that says, hey, we've come a long way, baby? I think it's top secret. Why is this top
But I
secret?
can respond to that. And actually, can we hear Masnitz?
Sure.
Mande, est-ce que li mio con il a passé li te ye année passée? Et comment li changé? So I just said, how is it, how is it better now and how has it changed? Si vous parlez bien. Okay.
She'll talk. Parce qu'il parlait de manger,
Mhm.
pour manger, the people. The food is good.
So because you talked about food,
Go ahead,
okay,
no, you
I'm
don't.
sorry, because you talked about the food has gotten better. The
Thank
food is good
goodness.
now.
There we go.
Men, pou nan mouman sa, li difisil pou nou. Pi gwo difikilte nou gen la, se paske nou, yo mande moun yo kay, moun yo va jod ken et.
So right now, what's really hard is that we need housing and people are looking for a house. And
Mwen pa kon pi devan, sil va, on lot fason, men pou mouman sa li va. Nou pa konen, nou pa.
for this moment, we don't know what's happening. We don't know what's going to happen a little bit forward. Maybe it'll get better. But for right now, it's really hard. So, so before, when people stop me, it was, can you help me get a license? Now, when people stop me, it's, can you help me find a house?
Well, it's more, excuse me, it's more than just a house, everything they ask you of.
But I mean,
Okay.
in terms of that focus
Yeah.
has shifted.
No,
So part of what's, Magdi, kek bagay kita change?
Mm-hmm.
Munti bagay, magkita. See, English or Creole doesn't mean what I have to say what I have to say. Because I forget, I'm also getting old at this point. But the other thing is that people's situation, who they are has changed. So they're not just getting here and not knowing where they are. They now have had CNA, his Center for New Americans has stepped in and done phenomenal work. So they've got language, they've got, they've got more language, they've got jobs. Pam's done amazing work getting people. She's not the only one, but she's done a whole lot. So people have their feet here. People have cars now because they've been working and they need a car if they're living in Western Massachusetts. So they're not, my sense is they're not a deer in headlights
Right.
that they were when they first got here. So the needs have changed.
Housing is so rough right now for everybody.
Mm.
And so when you're coming from elsewhere, much harder, but just to,
Right.
we are in a housing crisis for,
right,
And they're all aware.
so just.
They all know.
no, yeah.
Excuse me, because I interrupted Masni.
No problem.
Okay, so I don't know how you want to manage this. It's yours.
The mayor had her hand.
Mayor
up,
had,
so.
yeah.
I just want to say something else. We're talking about an entity that is not present. And I'm not feeling 100% comfortable with that. There's a weekly shelter call. I want to make everybody aware that's listening to this as well. We have a weekly call where we have people from ServiceNet, usually Keith and myself is on that every Wednesday morning at 8:30, and Center for New Americans, people who are helping get jobs, Gina Gaboni, all wonderful people get on the call. And to be quite truthful, in most of the, like healthcare or social service providing jobs, there's a dearth of they can't find people. There's a lot of openings there. So this is, I wanted to tell you the flip side of the other things that are happening. No, everybody is in agreement. There's not enough housing. There's not enough people to work on the housing. But there are lots of social service agencies that, including our delegation gets on this call generally to try to sort out some of these problems, more problems than answers.
Yeah.
So, but I just felt, this is a group that does provide an enormous amount of service to Greenfield as a community, and they're not here, and I represent all of that. So we can't lose sight of that either.
At Wednesday's meeting, could you ask the question if ServiceNet would take volunteers? So the volunteer would volunteer for ServiceNet, and then the volunteer for ServiceNet would be the liaison to you.
Right. Oh, no.
So then ServiceNet, if someone volunteered to be a ServiceNet volunteer,
Right.
then they could, represent ServiceNet in the conversation. That, I don't know if they'd be amenable to that, but it's a question that we should ask and put it out there,
Okay,
and then let them say, no, we can't do that. But I think I remember.
Separate conversation with ServiceNet that we could have a broker just about, some of the things you're seeing and how we get them out of gatekeeping so that volunteers can do other things that they don't have to work. Because, all of us who've worked for nonprofits understand that you get deluged and then you shut down. So they're like, we can't even deal with you because we just don't have enough capacity. So how do we make it easier for them?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think ServiceNet does ask for volunteers on their website. They ask for volunteers. This might be in other capacities, but volunteers and volunteers, so.
I don't know.
Oh, I have a hand up from Councilor Gilmore.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that we did invite someone from ServiceNet to attend this meeting. I haven't seen a response from them. So unless they responded to the clerk's office without copying at least myself, I haven't seen anything. And I find that a little bit odd because if they knew that we're having this conversation and they're not able to be here because they're unavailable, I would still expect them to try and reach out to let us know or possibly reschedule. So it might be worth kind of reaching back out again to see what's going on. But that's all I had.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, Counselor Healy.
And let's not forget that Masni was talking when I interrupted her and stole
All right, well, Counselor Haley has his hand up.
it. Yeah, no, I'm saying.
Yeah, I think everything you're doing is great. I had one question though, and it was in regards to the children in school. How has the integration in the school system been? Any complaints there? Because we've talked about the adults, but we haven't talked much about the kids here, right? So, are they being, are they socializing? Are they joining sports? Are they, and how can we help the kids feel more comfortable in the school system as well?
I could answer, but I'm gonna let Masni answer and this time I'll shut up until she's done. Because she's there and she knows what's happening with the kids and she's got a 7-year-old that's in school. So, vous comprenez, il y a demandé qui j'en petit mounio a bien habitué, comment yo ves? Non, l'école, oui, comment l'école apprend petit mouni, comment yo integrate. They're good at school. They're good at school.
Seulement, di pat gen ti moun, te gen ti moun ki te bezwen à l'école là, l'âge yo rive pour à l'école.
Algérie?
L'âge.
Oh,
Yo nan
they were,
l'âge à l'école.
You're talking to?
Yo nan l'âge pour à l'école, yo pas te inscrit. C'est moi-même qui te parlé ensemble avec Teresa. Parce que, ou comme Teresa.
Oui.
Et moi-même qui te parlé ensemble avec Teresa.
Okay, time passing me, pass on you too.
Okay.
She's going on, but I won't remember everything she's saying. So she was saying, the kids are doing well in school, the kids that are in school are doing well, but what I've heard is they're playing sports and they're integrating. It's the younger ones that aren't quite old enough to be in the public school, but need preschool, that aren't getting in. She started talking about Teresa. Teresa was hired by Community Action to be a coordinator because and actually I heard that this came from the previous mayor. It was seen that more help needed to happen. She sits days in there 5 days a week in the mornings. So she's filled a lot of the service net holes. But Masni started saying that she talked to Teresa about these kids that need to be in preschool. So when they take out avec Teresa, ça passe.
Il était really côté pour yo inscrit moun yo. Et puis yo te parlé tout papier pour nous te bail. Et puis Teresa te fait nous bail papier, il t'a inscrit. Mais l'autre qui là pour
So just real quickly, so Teresa took all the paperwork and she made sure. So, and again, it's just for clarity. So this would have been ServiceNet, had staffing. So it's how the community is really rallying around what the needs are. And I do want to give them credit, the community credit for that. So Teresa got all the paperwork and made that happen. And Tim Monsayo said for preschool.
Et Tim Monsayo, c'est Tim qui a 5 ans, yo work pour kindergarten.
So so this was for public school. This is the kids that are 5 years old that would be going, in September that were not enrolled until Masni spoke with Teresa and then Teresa moved the ball to get them enrolled. So these are some of the things that are falling through the cracks. But for the most part, the schools have been really working really well with the kids. And the ones that I've spoken to are most all speaking English. Masni's daughter only speak English with her.
Great.
Which is amazing. Yeah.
Well, Empress was next.
Well, I have a couple questions, but out of fairness, because like the mayor said, ServiceNet isn't here. Which I want to poses another question that kind of raises more questions than answers there. Because usually when organizations are asked to represent themselves or send a representation of their organization, that they'll send somebody. It doesn't necessarily need to be a head, but I mean, from my standpoint, I think there needs to be a further discussion on what we can do to bring ServiceNet to the table. Because this right here isn't gonna do anything.
Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
He's here. Oh, he's writing it all down.
Who's here?
There'll be an R up in the paper, so at least now we'll start a conversation. perhaps.
I would like to see from my standpoint. Even as far as the HRC getting involved, to call a meeting, to have ServiceNet come to that meeting to present this
Yes,
again.
yes.
Because I feel that this is a topic that needs to be discussed. And this is not a fair representation, because like I said, a lot of people have questions. And people want to say things, but you really can't say something about an organization and they're not there to defend themselves. We went through that before, we're not gonna give them back again. So, with that being said, on that part of it, I would like to collab and see what we can do as far as the HRC community meeting to have. HRC, I'm sorry, to have ServiceNet come to represent and take this on a different level of community support. And besides that, I have a question for I have a-
Masni, yeah. I'm sorry, I was just translating to her what you were saying.
I have a question for you too.
Okay.
Okay, I would like to know, do you feel like your basic human needs are being met since you've been at Days Inn? Let me put it like this, versus when Wendy was there and you had full access and you had more support versus Wendy not being there. Have you seen a change in support for you as far as your needs being met?
Est-ce que je joins un changement dans qui j'en ça nous nécessita? Ah, I just understand.
It doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be exact. You got the gist, yeah.
Translating to Creole into you. C'est ça ou besoin. C'est ça ou besoin. Ou joindre une différence entre avant les métiers là, métiers de nous, et qu'on y en a les métiers papa là. Est-ce que vous voyez une différence en
Bien, le ou de là avant, le ou pas là après. Parce que livre de connaît, avant, when il était venu dans des années là, est-ce que tout bagaille, c'est bon pour, est-ce que ServiceNet te fait, tout bagaille aussi pour se faire dans le contrat là, tout?
Non.
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 Mais Black Monday, est-ce que vous voyez une différence?
En différence entre avant et l'autre là.
Comment ça ou besoin? Comment vous joignez ça ou besoin? Est-ce que c'est la même les métiers là et les métiers pas là?
Avant les Wendy était là.
Before Wendy was here. I'm gonna do it short.
Yeah. And depuis moi besoin, depuis nous besoin Wendy, nous relais Wendy li toujours pour nous.
If I needed anything, if I needed Wendy, I would call Wendy. Anything that I needed, she would help me with.
Li mette à soir, li mette la journée, li mette l'heure travail.
Morning,
Morning
time.
Or is it night?
Première, à cause Wendy pas qu'à rentrer, li difficile en pile.
So now, because Wendy can't come, it's very hard. It's very hard.
So is this focus as far as a lot of the Haitian things that are there, in your opinion, because like I said, once again, we really can't, but I'm just a little bit of an overview here. Do you feel like that this is something universal for all the families that's done at Days Inn?
Est-ce que vous sentez comme ça? C'est vérité pour toute famille à Days Inn?
Les vérités pour plus fort, moi pas habiter en général, mais pour plus monde.
It's true for many people, for most people. I can't say that it's true in general for everybody.
Okay.
And I would say it's not true for everybody because I don't have contact with everybody.
Right.
And that's probably part of the piece. If I'm there, then the people that I don't know do have contact with me so that they can get help. If they don't know me, they can't call me.
And Wendy, to go back to you, now, I know there's been 2 instances where you said you went down to volunteer. The first time was before it started, and then after Jeannie started. Before Jeannie was there, you went down there once,
Yes.
right? And
Well,
after-
no, many times.
Okay,
Many times. As you know, I'm not very good rule followers, if they don't make sense.
That's right.
I know, I'm just being real.
So as far.
Wait, Kisa.
Dire non seulement, c'est pas où seulement, se moun, depi se yon moun ki pa nan servis net, ki bezwen ede nou, yo pa aksepte.
It's not about me. It's not about Wendy. It's about anybody that wants to come to ServiceNet to help. ServiceNet doesn't accept it.
Right, but do you remember the
So,
first time who said that you can be here for what they gave?
Yes, I do. And I remember the entire situation.
Okay.
And so here's a piece that I don't think I said, I mentioned it to you. I have reached out. I mean, this is not the first time that they have not shown up to a meeting that was called. The mayor had a security meeting that they didn't show up to also. Am I right, Mayor? Or you didn't want to?
We had another meeting with the police.
With the police department that they didn't show up. I also reached out to Polly. I said, can we mediate this? She said, no. I reached out, I said, would you please explain what I did that's so egregious and to whom and when, because I don't know. And she never responded to me. So I would love it if you can, if somebody can facilitate the dialogue. But again, the focus of this meeting, I mean, and I wanted to expose all of this about ServiceNet, but it's really about a liaison. It's really about, so now we've got somebody, it's about having people have a voice and people being able to come here and talk. It's about knowing, not knowing that the recreation area is there, but being there and going, oh, and we can get a pass and we can do this and going to the library and doing it with people that are in the community. Again, Center for New Americans has done phenomenal work. I've had these people to my home. Massey's been to my home many times, her kids to my home. It's community. It's not that I have a job. And I think that's, as much as I am frustrated with what's happening with ServiceNet, I'm frustrated because I keep hearing it every time I talk to somebody that's living there. Never mind people in the community, and there are lots of stories. But really, this was really about coming in and saying, so we're reestablishing me as the liaison. I talked with Pam Adams. She might want to be, this is an informal thing saying, we've got Creole speakers here that want to help, that want to connect people. And it's coming into the city council and saying, so this is what we're doing. And maybe it's a way that we can also work with ServiceNet so that we can open up what's really causing a lot of struggles for people that are living there.
Sure.
It's unnecessary.
Well, Counselor Gilmore had her hand
Yeah, I
up.
just wanted to interrupt and say, we did have, I'm sorry, my video went off. Do you hear me? Am I
Yes, you're all
frozen?
set. Go, keep going.
Okay. Ryan Whitney asked to be recognized in the chat because his raise hand function isn't working, and then someone else was using the chat, but I just want to let everyone know we're not supposed to use the chat in city council meetings because it's not accessible. Everything that happens at the meeting has to be recorded and it has to be audible, because if someone has a visual disability, they wouldn't be able to see that chat.
I don't see chat here.
Yeah, and also I don't think anyone in the room can see it. But I will leave it, I'll leave it to them if they wanted to make the comment for part of the conversation. I just wanted to let people know we're not supposed to use.
Okay, Megan just raised her hand too.
Oh, go ahead.
No, Ryan wanted to talk, but.
Oh, Ryan.
And Ryan's muted.
All right. Well, we'll go
Did
back
you
to
say
Ryan. Megan,
Wait, hold on, Ryan. Ryan just,
sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you. I don't want to get reverb back, so I gotta mute the TV and then do it on my phone. Hold on.
Can't hear you.
I just wanted to make a comment, that I did try to go down there and help out in the beginning when all of this was going on. And we first received people from other countries, not just Haiti, but multiple different countries. And ServiceNet was like kind of put this away, and like that's why we backed off a lot. There was a lot more people that wanted to help too. And I love this, that there's going to be some talk about a community liaison and stuff like that. But I also did go and hear Joe Conifer speak, and some people came and spoke to her about that there was a piece that ServiceNet was supposed to be helping with housing that they're not helping with. So I wish they were here to speak on that, because that was the thing I was hoping to hear in the meeting was that they are contracted to do a little bit more with
I don't know what you're saying.
Can't hear.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are really.
Ryan, I apologize. We can't hear. If you chat it into the chat room, maybe someone online can read it back to us. In the meantime, Megan, you have your hand up.
that I think the board and some other boards could get together, contact the state about and look at some oversight for agencies that are taking care of people. Say they're supposed to do
Ryan.
something.
Ryan,
We can't hear
we
you.
can't hear you. So if you could stop talking and chat, type into chat and someone can tell us what you're saying for you. So go ahead and mute yourself because we can't hear you. It's mumbled. Megan, you have your hand up? Sorry, folks. Megan, you still there?
You're muted.
You're muted, Megan.
All right, well, if she comes on screen, keep an eye on the screen.
Yeah.
She comes up.
We'll help you out with.
Did anybody else in the room have anything to say?
One thing, I guess,
Go ahead.
two things.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show my age because when we brought people over.
You don't know.
Hold on,
When we
just,
brought people over from-
hold on, just because we got Megan. Megan, go ahead. You had something to say?
I'm sorry. I just wanted, there was one person on the left side of the room. I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but you asked if things had gotten better. And I just wanted to share that up to 2 weeks ago, I got an emergency call that they couldn't discharge someone that lived at the Days Inn who had a brand new baby because they didn't have a car seat. And they said that normally they have them at Days Inn, but they had run out and nobody could provide it for them. So we were running around trying to find a car seat, and this was only 2 weeks ago. So it may have improved in some places, but it is definitely still lacking.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you very much, Megan. Drive safely. Go ahead, Pamela.
No, that's okay. I just,
Oh, gosh, I hope you're
going
not driving.
to date myself and say that when we brought people over from Cambodia, they were housed, they were taken care of, and it did often involve church people that did that. So I guess my question is, has anybody tried to pull in the various churches? Interfaith has done all kinds of stuff. Secondly, when's the contract expiring for ServiceNet? I mean, I hate to sound mean, but if they're not showing up and this is a pattern, maybe that's an emergency contract with ServiceNet and we can find somebody else who can stop with the blocking of what needs to happen for people.
There, you had your hand before you.
I just want to answer that question. The Catholic Church was contacted right away, as most of you probably know. This is it's mostly Haiti is mostly Catholics. So the Father Pierce was brought in right away. I wanted to give a shout out within short order. He had the sheriff's van there getting folks to church. And I thought that was amazing. It was within a couple of days. And I still see many of those folks at that happens to be my church, at the church. So that's going very well. And Derek Healy, I wanted to say the schools were there from day one. They had like 3 people there. They've made a huge effort to get everybody registered and into whatever, like they'd become one day and at school the next day. So that part was one of the best parts.
Do you remember how long the contract's for, either of you?
I will have
Have to look. Sorry, we don't have it, just because Barbara asked.
I'm sorry, I spaced for a minute. How long the what was?
Contract just goes to.
No, I don't.
Okay, so that's the question we'll try to get back to.
Yeah.
Also understanding the scope of the contract.
Right,
Because
right.
there may be the things we're talking about aren't in the scope and we gotta
Well,
or find other people
a
or.
very clear thing that's in the contract that really upset me was that everyone's supposed to have an emergency contact number. Nobody does. Nobody has an emergency contact number. So if you're not at the Days Inn and you have an emergency, there was a near fatal car accident that I got called the next day. I've been dealing with hospitals that they don't have an emergency contact and the people don't have an emergency contact given. That's a very basic thing that is in the contract that everyone should have. They're told to call 911.
Go ahead, Counselor Healy.
Yeah, I did hear a little bit of what Ryan was saying, and that was one of his questions was accountability, right? So ServiceNet has this contract, and is there a board at the state that holds ServiceNet accountable for their work? You know, who do we reach out to if we're not satisfied? Because most contracts have like a termination for means or other avenues where you could terminate a contract with a either a contractor for not meeting their contractual requirements, right? So where does that go?
My understanding is the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities.
And do we have a representative that we're working with there? Has anybody reached out to them?
We have spoken with that individual. That person's been to the Wednesday meetings a couple of times. That's how I got the contract. And I not seeing the end date on this contract. I'm trying to read 36 pages really fast.
That's okay. You get the answer. You get the answer for probation. But to do what you're suggesting, Counselor Healy, to do something like that, we would have to have someone else lined up for you. Even.
That's the issue.
Right. So let's see it or something else.
Then who and
Right.
you know,
And that's why nothing's moving in. It's not like, okay, here's a problem. How do we all come together to fix this problem?
Right.
Because we all know that it's a problem. They know that it's a problem. We're not fixing it.
Well, from what I'm really hearing, sorry. What I'm really hearing is ServiceNet needs help, but they're not really accepting help. So it's this hamster on the wheel type thing of, not getting. Okay, go ahead, Counselor.
I guess my question, because I also want to be mindful of time and just you guys have kids at home and all of that. So do I, but I'm here for however long it takes. How can we be helpful both as city council as city government to this situation? So I've heard helping to talk to the state possibly, whether it's with Senator Comerford, with the office of all those acronyms in Boston, getting ServiceNet to actually sit down with us. What else? What are we missing?
Counselor Healy, did you have anything to add to that question or to dovetail with that or something separate?
No, I just forgot to lower my hand.
I apologize. I'm so nervous about missing somebody that Go ahead, ma'am.
This is a practical thing, and I just wonder, when I was looking into preschool for the kids last summer, I called around, and at that point last summer, Head Start didn't have their van anymore. They didn't have funds to go pick people up. That's still the case. And whether, just in a practical sense, and then the kids who are entering kindergarten, I'm hoping that the schools will start working on it in August, trying to get them in, and if there's any kids who need assessments and things like that, or language. And I don't know whether, there's two different agencies, Head Start and the city, whether the city could provide any transportation, but I think the preschool is a big need for the young children that's not being met, and that would be super good to try to solve that problem.
Yeah. What about AEL?
Counselor Healy?
I was just saying, we have AEL in Greenfield, which is a city-owned preschool. Is there no avenue there to get these kids
When
into
I
AEL?
called, it was like booked and with a wait list. And, yeah.
I can't do schooling or. Yeah, it's academy for me.
Yeah,
That's just what it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, there's nothing you can do about that one right now. Sorry.
I was just verifying that it is in fact a problem. It's not the school age kids, it's the younger kids. And it's also daycare over the summer.
Yeah.
The kids are already in daycare and the kids that came now that aren't.
Right.
You know, so we got that.
So what I'm hearing a little bit, or everything else?
Well, I was gonna respond to,
Sure.
I'm sorry, Carolyn?
Laura.
Laura. I don't know.
Wondolowski.
I knew the Wendowski. I think that when we talked about, when I talked with Counselor Gilmore and President Obama, it was like, we need to know this. So I think one of the first steps is having this be spoken about and having it be public. And again, I don't know what we can do with service. And I'm hoping that they'll sit down and we can figure out how we can work together because they want to stay in the community.
Right.
And we want to welcome them into the community. These are, so I think that there are two pieces. If we can work with ServiceNet, great. But I think it's also just to keep this new cadre of people that, we don't know how long they're going to be with us, for a year, for 5 years, for 25 years. And how do we keep contact with them so that they have a way to meet people, to be in the community and to excel?
So the mayor has the meeting on Wednesday, the regular standing meeting Wednesday, and maybe some of this will come up.
That's
There's gonna be a
Wednesday morning.
recorder-
right
There's
now.
gonna be an article in the recorder on Wednesday. Do you still have Empress's email from the old days?
Oh, I'm sure I do.
So
I
you
still
two,
have and yours,
you,
so.
yes, that would be a ways on there. And the city council will continue to talk about it and.
That's my question, is if the city council, and maybe that's a conversation, if the city council would like regular kinds of updates, having people come in
Well, maybe that.
that are
that's
a
an
couple days
option
in.
To also ask ServiceNet to come to the city council meeting to give us an update.
Yeah.
Give
There
them-
you go, yeah.
Give them a lot of notice.
Yes.
So that they
So
can.
the
Yeah.
chair of this committee will be talking to the president and that'll be an ongoing conversation, whether
It's
it
right
happens.
there.
Whether it happened, yes, Councilor Gilmore is the chair of this committee. So at the chair's meeting, that this will be discussed and, if it's not here, it'll be at the full council, but the conversation is going to continue. And if you don't hear from anybody in a few weeks, you have the emails. So.
I do.
And it's, it's also summer, so, we'll.
This has been going on for a year and a half. This has been going on, it's
Thank you,
come to a
Mayor.
point now.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Mayor. It's now come to a point where it's like, okay, this is real. We've got a lot of people here. How do we even want to step in this community? So I thank you, Counselor Gilmore. I thank you for taking this step with us.
Her hand is up, so I guess she's going to comment.
Okay.
Oh,
Set up.
yeah, it's, of course, it's my pleasure. But I did want to tell Councilor Wondolowski that President Bottomley and I will definitely talk and get this onto committee chairs. I like your idea that we give them plenty of notice and just let them know these are the times when we meet, what's going to work best for you, and then we can work something out based on their schedule. Because it sounds like the mayor's not getting a lot of communication from them either, and it looks like I just missed her, but what I was getting from that was that they haven't met in a few months, right?
Yeah.
So
Wait, who hasn't
I
met
think-
in a few months?
the mayor
they-
hasn't been able to meet with them. They haven't been attending those, the service
Yeah,
that hasn't been
yeah.
attending those Wednesday morning
Well,
meetings.
no, they've been in the Zoom meetings.
ServiceNet
Zoom,
has been
okay.
attending, the Wednesday morning meetings are a half an hour meeting. And ServiceNet has been there. ServiceNet
Okay, I
did not come
misunderstood.
to another security meeting that we had back in the end of March that with the chief of police, and that's the one that they didn't show up with. I don't believe that the mayor has had any direct contact with ServiceNet since that time. But I
Okay,
don't,
my
I can't say that,
apologies.
sure.
That's okay.
But Wednesday morning, ServiceNet is on those meetings. Somebody from ServiceNet.
But it's a short meeting that's
Yeah,
not
so it's
dedicated.
not-
to
Right,
this.
Yeah.
right, exactly.
I thank you. Sorry about that.
No, thank you very much. Anybody else have anything that they need to say? The next meeting of this committee is going to be on August 19th at 6 o'clock here and on Zoom unless otherwise posted. And so if there's no other comments, I move that we adjourn.
I just want to say thank you.
So moved.
Okay, so moved and thank you,
we have a
everybody.
I want to say
Second.
thank you to everybody.
Thank you,
Second.
counselors.
We have to take a roll call because we're on.
Oh, for
Yeah,
adjournment.
sorry.
And Mary Jo for translators.
Very good, Jeff. Counselor Healy, you okay with adjourning?
Yes.
Counselor Gilmore, are you okay with adjourning?
Yes.
Counselor Wondolowski, Counselor Perry. All right.
Okay.
And this meeting is now closed.